We built our civilization on certainty. We believed we had tamed the world by breaking it down into understandable parts. But within that certainty, anxiety lived. Like a flawless symphony suddenly pierced by a false note heard only by the chosen few. Scientists looked at the empty spaces in the periodic table and saw not just cells, but an abyss. It was a feeling of someone who knows there is a hidden door in their home, but cannot find the lock. We breathe this secret every second. We let it into our lungs. We lived inside it, unaware that air was not just a mixture of gases, but a dense veil concealing something vast and utterly alien. William Ramsay was obsessed. His laboratory became a purgatory for matter. Imagine that cold, not the kind that makes you want to hide your hands in your pockets. This was a cold that stopped time, minus 190 degrees. Here, metal becomes brittle like glass, and the familiar world falls apart. Ramsay and Travers worked like surgeons, dissecting the very atmosphere. They stripped layer after layer from the air. Oxygen, the thing that gives us life, they discarded as unnecessary. Nitrogen, the thing that fills our lungs, they cut away as waste. They were searching for the residue. A tiny drop of solitude at the bottom of a vast ocean. It was a hunt for a ghost that left no trace. Exhausting night watches, where the hissing of gases began to sound like a whisper that could drive one mad. They were not just searching for a new element, they were trying to force a confession from the universe. And then the finale. A few cubic centimeters of invisible silence, sealed in glass. Ramsay called it new, but in that moment it felt like his oldest enemy. Something that had remained silent for billions of years. A hand on the lever. A heart beating in rhythm with the electric generator. In that moment, inside that cramped room, everything was at stake. Were we truly masters of this world, or merely children playing in a sandbox at the foot of the stars? The silence was so dense, it could be touched. Ramsay knew. Now he would either see nothing, or the world would change its color forever. It was fear and a sweet despair at once, the final second before the unknown turned into light. The click of a switch. A sound that sliced through the laboratory silence like a blade. Thousands of volts of electric fury rushed into the glass trap where Neon waited. Imagine that moment. The scientists expected a faint glow, a pale sign of life, another dull spectral line to be logged in a notebook. But Neon had no intention of being dull. It didn't just light up, it erupted. This was not fire, not combustion, this was matter itself transforming into pure light. The glass tube in Travers' hands blazed with an incredible fiery red. Not the red of a sunset, nor the red that runs through our veins. This was a color too intense for our world, aggressive, primordial, and it flooded every corner of the room, devouring the shadows. The faces of Ramsay and Travers were bathed in that unnatural red glow. Their pupils constricted. They did not look like victors, but like men who had accidentally awakened something ancient and dangerous. Reflections on the metal instruments turned crimson. Travers would later recall that the sight was etched into his memory forever. They stood there, stunned in that scarlet radiance. It was triumph mixed with a primal fear. It turned out that the nothing they had been searching for so long had a voice, and that voice was a scream. It seemed as though the gas, which had kept an inert silence for billions of years, was now trying to say everything at once. There was something alien in that glow. A noble gas, an aristocrat that refused all chemical unions, suddenly revealed its true nature under electrical torment. It was proud. It would not react, yet it could absorb energy and turn it into a beauty that blinded. That evening, in London, a new sun was born, sealed within thin glass. They hurriedly raised a spectroscope to the tube. Every element has its signature, its unique set of lines. But what they saw resembled nothing known. Neon's spectrum was crowded with brilliant lines in the red and orange regions, a passport of a being born in the depths of stars, where temperatures are measured in millions of degrees. Ramsey understood. They had not merely found a new gas. They had found a source of light that required no oxygen, no pressure, no burning. Neon shone not because it was being destroyed, but because it simply was. It was eternity, passing through a vacuum. The scientists did not yet know that within a few decades, this light would become the blood of urban jungles. But that night, they simply felt on their faces the warmth of a new world they had just pulled out of nothingness. Science gave us light, but business gave us a tool. While William Ramsey reveled in the purity of discovery, another man, the Frenchman Georges Claude, looked at neon and saw not the mystery of the universe, but numbers in a ledger. For Claude, neon was a byproduct of his liquid oxygen plants. A gas that scientists treated as sacred was, to him, merely waste accumulating in cylinders. But he remembered that cry of light. He understood. If you trap that cry inside a long glass tube and force it to work, you can create something the world has never seen, an eternal flame that doesn't burn the hands. Thus began the age of domestication. A cosmic wanderer was taught to write letters. It was true surgery of light. To make neon speak the language of humans, we had to learn to control glass. Glassblowers became the new alchemists. They crafted vessels in which emptiness itself seemed to pulse. Every bend, every loop of a tube was a new prison for the gas. Claude grasped the essential truth. Neon was perfect for the city. It feared no rain. It did not burn out like Thomas Edison's bulbs. It required no constant supervision. All it needed was high voltage to begin its monotonous, endless song. The first sign in Paris in 1910, Palace Coiffure, was not just a barbershop advertisement, it was a manifesto. Humanity declared that it could steal color from the stars and hang it above the entrance to a shop. Georges Claude became a monopolist of light. He sold neon franchises like licenses to own magic. Within a few short years, the night ceased to be dark. Cities began to change their faces. But look closer at that light. It was a kind of betrayal. An element that exists in nature only in absolute calm was now forced to flicker, luring in customers. It became a servant of capital. A noble gas that had refused all unions for billions of years was now condemned to an endless dance inside a glass coffin under 12,000 volts. Its glow was not triumph. It was protest, the cry of an atom trying to break free, yet instead illuminating the signs of cheap hotels. If in Paris, neon was decoration, then in 1940s America, it became a language, the language of film noir. You know that shade? It doesn't illuminate the way. It only deepens the darkness. Neon became a light for those who didn't want to be seen as they truly were. It settled into alleyways that smelled of cheap tobacco and despair. Its characteristic hum, the low-frequency murmur of a transformer, became the soundtrack of insomnia. This light does not warm. It pulses like an exposed nerve. A noble gas once born in the cold of space now stood witness to millions of broken lives, reflected in glasses of whiskey and in the eyes of people waiting for a dawn that would never come. And then came Las Vegas, a city that should never have existed in the dead desert of Nevada. Vegas was not built of concrete. It was built of illusion and neon. Here, our protagonist experienced its true triumph and its final fall. Thousands of kilometers of glass tubes wrapped the city like veins. Neon became the bloodstream of gambling. It no longer simply shone, it manipulated. It promised wealth, it beckoned, it blinded. In Vegas, neon became a god to which people sacrificed their last money. It was the apotheosis of human vanity. We took the most inert, most independent substance in the universe and forced it to become part of the loudest show on Earth. But look closer. Behind every glowing jackpot hides rust and thousands of volts threatening death. Neon in Vegas is a tired actor, playing the same role for far too many years. It became a symbol of artificiality. We grew so accustomed to it that we stopped noticing its cosmic nature. To us, it became just gas, just advertising, just a color that helps sell. Its nobility was finally dissolved in the glitter of casinos. Neon burned out alongside the people standing beneath it. It was the peak of fame after which darkness always follows. And that darkness was already waiting around the corner in the form of a cheap semiconductor. The death of neon was not sudden. It came quietly in the form of tiny crystals of light-emitting diodes. LED technology promised everything neon could not. It was cheap, it didn't require thousands of volts, it didn't shatter into 1,000 sharp fragments. The world chose efficiency over magic. We traded a living gas pulsing inside glass for dead plastic. LEDs are imitation. They can reproduce any color, but they lack that depth, that vibration born from the ionization of atoms. Neon is the physics of stars. LEDs are the mathematics of profit. Thus began the Great Replacement. Old signs that had burned for decades were taken down like outdated stage props. Have you seen these graveyards of neon? It's a haunting sight. Once they were symbols of luxury. Now they lie under the scorching sun, forgotten and unwanted. Every broken tube is a small tragedy. When the glass cracks, neon does not simply escape, it disappears. It becomes invisible again, returning to the same atmosphere from which it was once stolen by William Ramsay and Georges Claude. The master glassblowers, the people whose lungs and hands created this light, have become unnecessary. Their craft is dying along with the gas. Now, instead of the art of bending, there is 3D printing. We have lost the tactility of light. We made it flat, predictable, and safe. But along with safety, we lost that dangerous beauty that once made us stop in the middle of a rainy street. It feels like an agony. When you see an old neon sign flicker, it is not just a faulty transformer. It is the cry of an element that wants to be free. Neon never belonged to us. We merely rented it to decorate our loneliness. And now, having found a cheaper substitute, it simply waits for the moment when the glass finally cracks. It does not pity us. It does not pity our cities, growing dimmer in their LED brightness. It only wants to go home to the endless blackness of space where it has nothing left to prove. When the last glass tube shatters under the tracks of a bulldozer, or simply yields to time, something happens that we do not see. The gas we held captive for 130 years takes its first free breath. It needs none of our electricity, none of our switches. It rises upward higher than airplanes, higher than satellites, higher than our memory of it. Neon cannot be destroyed. It cannot be dissolved or burned. It is the perfect escape artist. It simply blends back into the void from which we once stole it, returning to where it is truly at home. There, in the infinite cold of space, neon is not an exile. It is the fifth most abundant element in the universe. It is the heart of giant stars, many times larger than our Sunday. It is what gives nebulae their ghostly glow. Imagine this. While we forced it to advertise burgers, its kin out there in the blackness were igniting galaxies. Neon is the ash of stellar wars, an element forged in the very furnace of nuclear fusion. It has witnessed the birth of worlds, and it will witness their end. Our age of neon advertising, to it, is nothing more than a fleeting moment, a brief and strange dream inside a glass cage on a small, insignificant planet. The next time you see a flickering red sign on an old street, don't just pass by. Stop. Listen to that familiar hum. It is not merely a malfunction. It is the voice of an aristocrat of the universe, reminding you, light does not always belong to those who flip the switch. We have extinguished neon from our streets. We replaced it with cheap diodes, but we will never extinguish it in the sky. Because we are only spectators in its theater, the theater of eternal, noble, and utterly indifferent light,